All right. Okay. So here,
Okay, let's begin.
let's
uh,
begin.
it's wonderful to meet you. We have actually met once before at NAM show, but I'll get to that a bit later. But
At the NAM show, right
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. Well,
What
it
year? What year was that?
2017. So I was doing some demonstrations on the Boss stand,
Oh,
and
right
you
on.
came in, and we went into the room where the Strandberg guitar was, and we had to talk about guitar synths for a while. And
Oh, right.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
there we go.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have met once. We
Sure
had
did.
a nice chat about guitar synths, which I want to ask you a bit more about.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's cool. Um, Congratulations on the beginning of the tour. It's the Thicker Than Blood tour with Extreme. It sounds like it's
Yeah.
started out well.
Yeah. So far, it's good. It's been good. It's
Yeah,
been um yeah. It's been really okay. It's been fine. It's been
you, s-
fun. It's
you
been
said,
fun. It's like uh I mean, it's funny that we're doing we talked about doing something like this a long time ago, and we just never, I don't know, logistics never made it happen, and now it's happening now. So it's been fun.
yeah, that's he definitely said the same thing. And I did ask him if there was any crazy tour stories as yet, or is it just all cups of tea and dinners and all nice? And he said he had some words to pass on to you, which I'll tell you in a second. But yeah, how have you found it so far? Has it been? Are you just getting things
It's been
right? He
fun.
said
It's
he's
been fun. Well, well, part of it is a lot of this is about a simpatico between the bands,
yeah,
you know. And if there's any, if you have to have simpatico if you're traveling
yeah,
as a traveling road show carnival or what have you. And I mean, it's I like Nuno, as a personally.
yeah,
I mean, I respect him immensely I mean, he's immensely talented as a guitarist. I mean, he's an extraordinary guitarist. I mean, I could, from my perspective, and part of the thing is that we have both done a Tom Morello had did a guitar camp, and we're both Nuno and I were lecturers along with
right,
John Five,
hmm
Wayne Kramer, and Tom Morello, and we just hit it off. He's there's a kind of posturing that can occur,
yeah,
you and he's not that guy, and I really appreciate that. And we're both not posturing people in that way about the guitar.
yeah. And
And
you're both so very different players too, so different.
yeah, you're very different. Yeah, just very different. There's a little bit of crossover, but there's very different. The musics are very different, and
Mm,
and where, you know, so it's interesting because it's very complementary in its own way, and we both have our intensities, and we both have our things that we do. And the other thing that's interesting too is that Nuno's experiencing a real renaissance because he kind of came in as a kind of fireball,
yeah,
early on, and now he's just so his approach, from his so I don't want to say matured, but it's so much deeper
mm,
now.
yeah,
I mean, it's the song Rise. I mean, you cannot, and there's no way you can just listen to the musical technical accomplishment,
yeah, for sure.
and you just have to respect, what I mean, it's extraordinary,
Yeah,
and the guitar solo everyone's talking about. So, and deservedly so.
yeah.
But weirdly enough, it's kind of I don't know, man. It's brilliant, and he's a fun guy.
That's great. That's great. But back to you guys. Back to you guys. So with the set list, are you keeping it fresh? Are you mixing it up yet? Are you still finding your feet in what it's going to be for this tour? Is it set in stone? How do you approach that right now with the band?
Yeah, I think we well, we're also celebrating the 30th anniversary of our third record,
Yeah, Stain.
Stain, which is the record that Doug Wimbish joined the band on. So it's the 30th anniversary of Stain, it's the 35th of Vivid. And part of what we do, is like we've been kind of doing a mixing and matching thing. Like we haven't been playing Landlord for the last
Okay.
for a little while, and then we put it back in the show because we have to be mindful of time. Like certain things, we're playing for about 45 minutes, so we have to be mindful about the expansive time that we're engaged in.
Yeah, for sure.
But we put it in, and it's kind of good to have songs come in and out if they have a function, if there's a certain feel they bring to it. And like we actually have been playing around with even how we do covers and where we put them. Like we started playing a little bit of not the full song, but we play a little bit of Nothing Compares to You.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
we really
Yeah.
just really buffeted with the passing, Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah.
And artists I always have had and will always have a huge amount of affection and respect for.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that just let's do it, and we did it, and it became a real moment for the audience to
Connect. Yeah.
connect.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like, but we also, like the last show, we actually have been messing around. We play a version of Zeppelin's Rock and Roll,
Wow. Okay.
and it's such a fun tune, but it's in a way, it's one of those iconic tunes that uses rock and roll itself is the subject of it.
Yeah.
And there are a number of songs like that, and it's something that it's a song, a favorite, you know what I mean? And we actually opened the show. I'm giving away all the secret.
That's all right. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, I'd love to hear a tune like that put through
we
the
actually did that, and it's a great icebreaker,
right. Yeah.
So yeah, so we kind of do experiment a bit with with what we're presenting,
But it's put through the living color washing machine, right? Which would change things
pretty
because
much,
you guys always do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we always, that's kind of, I mean, rock and roll music is divided between really they're two decidedly different camps. There's the kind of you kind of develop a set, or you develop a thing in a song, and you do that, and you try to hold to it meticulously, right? Or you take chances, you
Go
mess
sideways.
with it.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain degree, like you don't want to, you want the songs to be recognizable as the songs. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of like, when I think about, Hendrix never played the same songs the same way,
Yeah.
and that's also a tradition in the form. So, we tend to go towards that, and yeah, so it's interesting. Like when we played in DC, we played Sailing On by the Bad Brains because, well, I mean, we were playing kind of on our own, so that was a different thing. But yeah, we like to mess around a little bit with it, keep a few things pretty much in, and we're kind of like, okay, we've got a template. We're starting to get a template, but we're still talking, well, maybe we'll give this song a rest, because it's kind of cool to give a song a rest and then come back to it. Like, it was really played Landlord, and it was really, really fresh. We hadn't played it it didn't become a kind of rote or a shtick or anything like that.
Yeah. So you do like to keep
And,
it fresh. That's great. So you're talking about Hendrix, and I think there's some real synergies about your playing and Jimi Hendrix as far as when he came out. A lot of things that he played were difficult to comprehend for a lot of the audience as far as what he was doing or what he was going for. And this brings me back to you, because I think you, when I first became a fan of yours with Vivid, I was, I don't know, maybe I was 19 or 20 at the time, but I remember trying to learn the Occult of Personality solo. And at that point, and quite quickly realizing that your really unique style is, and your tone is almost impossible to emulate. But I just want to ask you, with those sort of solos, just like Hendrix, you seem to be sort of painting musical landscapes. So I just, rather than going for specific licks, almost, it seems like, at least that's what it sounds like to me. How do you approach solos? What do you hear in your head? How do you go?
Part of it. Okay, so part of it is because I've heard people talk about the cult solo, and there are people that have dismissed it. There are people, there are people that are amazed by it. There are people that are like, meh, because it's not predicated on, it was very kind of emotional thing, but it was also, it also does the opposite of what a lot of solos did at the time. They, a lot of guitar solos would start out very slowly and would graduate, and it actually goes the opposite way. It's like it's very fast at the beginning, and it actually slows down. I play less notes, so by the time you get to the bridge, it takes a very different tack than it does at the very beginning. And a lot of the things that I did in that solo were really interestingly for me, because I think about it later. It's like, oh yeah, this is stuff that I was there's like the string skipping thing.
Yeah.
There's stuff that really, I was checking out Joe DiOrio, Intervallic Designs. I had studied with this great guitar player Rodney Jones, who he played with Maceo Parker. He's a phenomenal jazz guitar player, and his thing was about maintaining a certain feel and not being constrained by the conventions of the time, not being constrained by the finding your own voice. That was a part of him and Bruce Johnson. Like, they were very iconoclastic, and one of the things that Bruce Johnson he was very critical of say saxophonists that wanted to play like John Coltrane. Like, his thing was, he was completely against musical hero worship. He said, do your own thing, and he was really a big fan of Grant Green, and Grant Green was active right around the same time as Wes Montgomery. Now, Wes Montgomery really exerted a tremendous, he was kind of the alpha in terms of jazz guitar at that particular time.
Yeah.
And he respected Wes Montgomery, of course, because, he said Wes Montgomery was a mofo, whatever, he respected him, but he also, his thing was, he really liked Grant Green because Grant Green was not beholden to Wes Montgomery. He was not trying to play like Wes Montgomery.
Right. Yeah.
He went his own path. And his thing, he was appalled by my interest in rock. He was appalled.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's like, he's a jazz dude, but he used to roast me over the coals about it. And,
but you're taking it somewhere different, right? That's the important part of that. It's the important part of that philosophy.
That's the thing. And part of it is, I came up listening to Coltrane and Ornette Coleman and Eric Dolphy,
Mm.
And I was, one point there was someone that described it, and they put up a picture of Jackson Pollock, right?
Yeah.
And, and they described it as that. And what was so funny was that I had a personal experience with a painting by Jackson Pollock. I saw a painting of his and this was some years ago when I was playing with Ronald Shannon Jackson at the Pompidou Museum. It's the Museum of Modern Art, and
Okay.
they had one of Jackson Pollock's black and white paintings, and it was a huge painting. It took up almost like a whole wall, and I remember feeling physically assaulted by the painting. Like, it was so shocking to me, and
Yeah.
I'd never had that experience with a piece of art where I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was really shocked. His rage
Wow.
was still embedded in the canvas. Like, it
Yeah.
was really raw and really visceral. And it was a very different experience than seeing, Dutch masters, or even seeing, Cubism. There was something
Mm.
about that piece of art that really affected me. So when somebody, and I think they were trying to diss me or whatever they trying to, because Jackson Pollock, one thing about Jackson Pollock is people would say, oh well, my kid could do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That, and it's actually not at all true.
Mm.
And that's the thing about art. One person is like amazed, another person is appalled by it.
Yeah.
But I will say that those moments in art that are arresting are crucial. And
Yeah.
it's
For sure.
it's okay, people, because I could say, well, I mean, basically the whole tune is based around a riff it's a G mixolydian, and
Hmm.
get into the weeds of all that and say,
Yeah.
and all my choices are really around that in the main body of the tune, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And what have you. But I mean, if it's not working, or if it's like, man, it's like I can't, what, But what's interesting is that I've seen a couple of people. There is at least one video I've seen where a person actually worked out and could really plays it very
Yeah.
closely, and
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing to watch their hands
Hmm.
as they're playing along, and I'm like, holy cow, this is completely great. It's completely, it's really arresting me to actually, because many people just they just shrugged,
Yeah.
whatever. But somebody actually took it on, and then seeing it's like, man, the logic of it,
Mm.
becomes apparent from seeing it from the other side.
How much do
So
you
yeah.
behold yourself to that? How much, like live when you reproduce it? How much do you
Well,
hold
there's
yourself
certain
to
bits
that?
there. You know what? There are bits like there's this one little string skipping thing that I really like, that I
Mm.
try to include in the phrasing of the solo. But other than that, I don't. I really, it's a challenge to, it would be a challenge, honestly, to do that solo note for note,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
But it's also a challenge to not do that solo, to find another thing,
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's one of the reasons that this song is still, after having played it more than 1,000 times,
Yeah.
and actually, interestingly enough, like, hearing my own approach to it over time, to the degree to which I've deviated from the solo, the degree to which I've done it where I really have not, I've really tried to go, away from playing the flurries, and other
Hmm.
times I've had a kind of, oh man, I go right back into it. It's kind of like, how am I feeling at the particular moment,
Right.
and that's the thing about it, and it's a different philosophy. I mean, in a way, because of the experience I had in playing with Ronald Shannon Jackson, listening to the kind of music I was listening to, and
Mm.
still I couldn't get rock and roll out of my mind or out of my spirit or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know, there's this thing where the and also the blues, you know, that is also part of a thing for me.
Well, I was going to bring up
You
Preaching Blues when you did the Robert Johnson cover, and
Yeah.
how you've done that like harmonica lick. That's just so it's just so soulful. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you about that actually. Is that just purely guitar? Did you have any guitar synth underneath or anything else in that?
In the preaching blues,
Yeah,
no, that's all just
just all
guitar. I
guitar.
mean,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's funny. The guitar synth thing, it's of such a niche. Like there's
yeah,
certain players, like Adrian Belew, Robert Fripp, Pat Metheny,
yeah.
um, to Steve I. I mean, there are, you know, I mean, there are people that still explore that.
Mm,
And there are a lot of younger players that are also exploring it too. But it's such a niche, a weird, you know, arcane niche dream. And part of it is what's interesting is even the guitar synthesizer thing is I feel there's a couple of different camps. There's like, well,
yeah,
trying to get the guitar to play another instrument,
mm-hmm,
right? Play a piano sound and not glitch.
yeah,
And I get that. But there's also a completely unique aspect of guitar affecting synthesis and having the nuances of guitar, you
mm,
know, still play like a guitarist, right?
yeah.
With these other sounds, and actually to make sounds that no other instrument can make. You know what I mean?
More
And I
reminiscent
kind
of
of
an analog
feel,
synth sort of sound. Yeah,
yeah, you know,
yeah,
and that's why, you know, it's really interesting. I was talking about the SY 300, and I
yeah,
was talking about how, in a way, you know, this will be a complete rabbit hole to talk about guitar synthesis, but in a way, it's been very frustrating because in a lot of ways, the issues with guitar synthesis have been kind of answered, but the development has
mm,
kind of not really been there, right? Like a product like the SY 300, it's kind of amazing. You could take just a regular guitar, you know, a
yeah,
regular mono guitar cable and get a polyphonic,
yeah,
and then have oscillators and things like that. So I've been like, you know, why isn't there a Eurorack version, a Eurorack friendly version where you could, you know, take the oscillators and send them into other gear. You know, take the
yeah.
LFOs, have it, you know, and it's just and part of it is that you know, these are niche products. There's one engineer that's responsible for it.
For the most part, that's
Um,
true. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, and there isn't um a tinkering, there isn't like a culture to allow the user to tinker in a
mm,
weird way. It's kind of like, okay, so this is what you can do, and this is the amount of expression controls you have, and this is, and it's kind of, and it's frustrating because, well, okay, so why can't I have unlimited, you know, expression controls? You
yeah.
know, why can't I do, you know, because you know, it's like, oh man, this thing works great, but there's a whole other level it can go to. And this is true. I mean, even with synthesis going back, you know, I mean, the stuff, the VG99 stuff that was really
Yeah.
its own kind of sound.
Mm.
And I thinking, man, but it was stuck. I mean, they did a lot. They put a lot of things in there. And in a way, you know, the fact that you have to have a separate controller, you know, blah blah, all that
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah,
weeds,
yeah,
you know. But and now they have this new thing coming out, you
yeah. The
know.
GM800 that's just come out now
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
and it's fascinating because it's going to use the Zen Core engine, and and it's like
Yeah.
there's finally parity between the keyboard side and the guitar
Yes.
synth side, using the exact same. So you can use the exact same sounds.
Yeah, that's right.
You know
So
what I
true.
mean? And the divided pickup, now it's like a TRS thing. And that, but I love the fact that they included a translator box for the 13 pin thing, right? That's kind of brilliant that they didn't abandon. I have a bunch of guitars that have
Yeah,
the
of
13
course.
pin,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the fact that and apparently I talked to a rep and they said, well, with the translator box, he guaranteed me it acts exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is fascinating, because this is something. It's like one of these things that is elusive, and now and you think for a time it was like, okay, well, we got what we've got, and they're gonna, and that's it. And then the fact that Roland and Boss are still trying to innovate in that space
Yeah.
is something I'm really grateful for. The one thing that it's like Korg is a company that they've kind of embraced DJs, they've embraced the tweaking and that kind of thing. And I just wish there was a kind of that there was a subculture like that in the guitar synthesis realm. I mean, there's some very interesting developments at like all those pedals, the Mellotron pedal. There's really interesting stuff and really mysterious stuff, because is that just being done with impulse responses? I mean, it's very weird, cool stuff. There's a bunch of software solutions that are interesting. Yes, it's fascinating. It's fascinating that their companies. Yeah.
At the risk of talking for another hour, just want to talk
yes.
about. No, it's great. So as long as you've got time, I've got time. But with your live rig now, I mean, I've seen the rig rundown of your spaceship and everything that goes on with that. How much of that are you taking out on tour? How much is practical? Are you stripping it down?
Well, that's part of the thing I'm talking about with my poor crew. Because also, doing this package tour, our stage time is limited. So, like when we're doing because we're also doing headline shows on the tour. So,
okay, right.
So it's kind of like finding a balance between a really elaborate pedal setup, which it's still elaborate, right? With the Helix and all that.
Yeah.
And and I'm really, I brought my SY-1000 for the rare day off, but I'm going to stick with the SY-300,
Okay.
because
you get your patches set up and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, get my patches set up and getting the MIDI to, to getting them to talk. The one thing that's good about the Helix is it has a architecture where once you've done your MIDI commands, the song, once you've saved the song can be anywhere on a set list and the MIDI commands follow, because of the way they've configured the command and control. It's a truly game-changing, and I love the fact, and this is what's cool about like Line 6, is that every update is really remarkable. Every update, that's the thing with Kemper, every update, they have a really pretty regular update schedule. Whenever they do it, something is really improved, something is really, some new feature comes in.
Yeah.
Some new command and control shortcut comes in, and it's, it's a really interesting philosophy. Like the Helix floor has been around for 10 years now, and it hasn't been relicked. It hasn't been, I mean, they still, and the fact that the HX Stomp and the HX Effects has essentially the same architecture, that's remarkable.
So are you running everything in like, you're still doing the parallel split out to things?
Yeah,
I'm doing
the parallel
stereo.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm still using the parallel thing. So 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 like going into the SY-300, the guitar split. You know, I have
Yeah.
one of these kind of,
little DOD boxes or something. What were they?
yeah,
Something like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
And there's a guy on Etsy, Michael Ricci, who makes them, you know, the DOD boxes, the resistance mixers, because
Yeah.
they work bidirectionally, right? So it's a mixer, but it's also a mult, right? It's
Yeah.
a splitter, and it's brilliant. You know, that's a
1 in 4 out or something, isn't it? One in 4.
1 in 4 out. But
Yeah,
there's
the other way around.
There's a fellow on Etsy I found who does one that's 1 in and 8 and 1 in and 8 out.
Right. Yeah.
It's great.
So you're running two. Yeah. Sorry, go.
Yeah, it changed my approach to effects. You know, I could run guitar into a laptop as well as to amps and stuff like that.
And you're running 2 412s?
But I pared it down a bit. I pared it down, you know, particularly when you kind of don't have the amount of time.
Yeah.
You know.
So the last thing I saw, you're running like 2 412s in stereo plus a Supro or something else. How are you just running in stereo?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Still doing that. That's great.
Still doing that. I'm still doing. In fact, that's what we're doing. This tour is a combination tour. Like we're doing when we're playing with Extreme, it's a pared down setup, right? When I'm playing with Living Color, with Living Color, then I can be a little more expansive.
The headline show, yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, headline shows like.
And guitars, are you still playing the PRS, the latest one?
Yeah, PRS. Yeah, I'm playing the PRS, and I actually brought out a couple of my old hammers.
I saw the Facebook post that you put up with like 6 guitars, and there was the old hammer in there and everything else.
Yeah, the Stephen McSwain. Yeah. I mean, when I come to Australia, I'm probably going to be bringing 2 guitars because it's just flying practical. It's just practical.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could bring all the children, but no. You know. So nice. You know, so here in the States, when you got a bus, that's the great and terrible thing about a bus is that you can bring extra stuff, and but we're gonna ship stuff that we're not taking to Australia, New Zealand. You know, we're shipping stuff back
as you have to. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for talking to me. I wish you all the success for the tour. I can't wait to see it.
Well, Josh, it's really, really cool to talk to you. And
you too, mate.
I could talk guitar synth and those kind of effects exotica, you know, for hours, obviously. And you know, but I appreciate the chat.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And tickets are available on Ticketek for anyone watching. Go out and get your tickets for the show next month. I'm sure it's going to be great. Can't wait.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks very much.
You know, I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Vernon. I'll see you soon.
You're very welcome, Josh. Good talking to you.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.